Welcome to the Changing the Perception of Sales podcast. And today I'm very delighted to say we are joined by Mike Bates, aka the Atlantic Grappler. But Mike, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here, mate. Thanks for inviting me.
No, pleasure is all ours. And as we always like to do on this podcast, is just start from the beginning around your career journey, really, Mike. So to the listeners, just who are you, what do you do, and where did your career start?
People always ask that question first, who are you, what you do. It's so difficult for me to answer. I think we need to start at the beginning.
Let's do it.
Because I do a lot of things, but it's all been shaped and influenced throughout my childhood, really. So, look, let's get this out of the way straight away. I'm nothing special, me, mate. I'm just a normal guy from Doncaster. I've got a handful of GCSEs, no A-levels, no degree. And it was a pretty normal working class upbringing, but my dad left at 10 years old. And that moment at the time turned my world upside down, but I now know it was the greatest thing that could have happened to me because it threw me out into the world and made me become the man that I am because I didn't have that male role model. And so I was off on a bit of a dodgy path for quite a few years. I was playing drums in bands. I was drinking a lot, smoking weed a lot. And I met a guy who was in the Navy. And for some reason, I don't know why, but the military, it appealed to me. I think because I was searching for a way to make my mark in the world. And when you're 19 years old, we all want to do that, right? But also kind of searching for a community and a family that I didn't feel like I had growing up. But he said to me, Mike, if you're going to join the military, you have to join the Royal Marines because all I've ever seen them do is fire guns off the back of ships and chase women around. I was like, perfect, I'm in. 19-year-old dream job, right? So this is back in 1999. I joined the Royal Marine Commandos when I was 20 to undertake the longest, most arduous basic military training in the world. And that really was the start of this evolution as me as a person. That was 25 years ago nearly. I'm giving my age away here. But it was such an amazing experience.
Wow. Love it. A lot to unpack there. And people listening to this might be thinking, sales podcast, why have you got Mike on here? And I think there's so much that you've achieved and done in your life that people listening to this will be able to take away from and implement in their day-to-day role, whether that be in work or outside of work, to become better people. So keen to go through quite a few of the things that you mentioned there. You said right at the beginning, you're nothing special, just a lad from Doncaster. Tell us a bit more about why you kind of started with that and why that was a really important part of what you said.
Because I think if you do it the other way around and people see, and we'll talk all about this stuff, but they see, a guy who's led Royal Marines to war or worked in the Covert intelligence world for 15 years or rode an ocean on his own or started, orbiting businesses, whatever, they can see you as someone that's almost unrelatable. It's really important to me. The reason I'm on this earth is to help people. The reason I'm sat in your podcast studio tonight when I could be at home with my kids is because hopefully someone listen to this, I can help.
Yeah.
So I want them to be able to understand that really it's a process. You can achieve anything in life. My life kind of motto is live a life without limits. And the only limitations in your life are the ones you place on yourself. And I'm just here to tell you that you can come from any background, any upbringing. If you want to go and achieve something, you can do it. And I'm living proof of that person. There's nothing special about me other than the fact I've worked hard and I believed in myself. And that is it.
And we're going to come into self-belief a little bit later on. But I think there'll be people listening to this just in any walk of life that might be, just a kid from Doncaster, just a kid from wherever it may be. Probably northern cities are the ones you would maybe relate to it the most. But what do you think does hold people back a lot from maybe achieving some of the things that you've achieved?
I think far too often we compare ourselves to others. There's a great saying that you should compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. And so I think we look outwards into the world far too much. And this has changed, right? Because when I was a kid, social media didn't exist. So you compared yourself to your schoolmates, but that was it. And it was a pretty low bar, to be honest, from where I was from. But you get to look out into the world through social media and the internet now, and you can see people who you perceive as successful or high performing, or perhaps someone who's got something you want. And often you don't think you'll ever make that leap. I think, again, for me, it's about looking inward, not outward. So very early on, I had to look deep within myself to understand who I truly was, because there was no one there to tell me, you're on the right path, Mike, you're doing the right thing. So I had to kind of internally inspect myself. Okay, well, what do I really believe in, and what do I want my life to be? And quite early, I knew I wanted it to be a life of service. I wanted to give back to others. I wanted to serve my country first and foremost. I wanted to serve other people. And once you've asked yourself those questions about what you want your life truly to be, and what are your values, what are your virtues, all that stuff, All the decisions you make in life are quite simple. And it stops you from looking at those other people and looking outward. The power really is to look inward, mate. And once you've done that and you understand who you are, anything's possible.
Brilliant. Love it. And let's go into your kind of career then. Obviously, you were looking for that sense of community. That's what drew you into the Marines. What was that like?
Well, culture shock to say the least, mate. So day one of commando training, they shave your hair off, right? I turned up trying to impress them in a light grey suit, pink shirt, purple tie. No, I wouldn't recommend that to anyone who's joining the Marines. So they singled me out as some kind of like hot shot. Shave my head first, give you your number, swear your allegiance to the monarch, Queen back then. And then you're in a room full of 60 guys who you've never met. And then they walk a Royal Marine in, a real Marine, and you're like looking at this guy with the green brown like a god, right? And he takes all his clothes off and shows you how to wash your balls. And it's a weird thing. And it's a bit of a culture shock. But ultimately, all they're trying to do is break any sense of what you know or who you are from day one. You will do this now. This is the way we operate. And then over the process of 30 weeks, they build you back up into this commando, basically, who can go to war. And I was awarded the Craig Medal at week 15, the best recruit in the troop. We ended up with, I didn't pass out in my original troop, actually. I fell off the ropes outside, hurt myself. But of the 60 guys who started commando training, only 9 finished. It's a pretty high bar to entry. Because the commando tests haven't changed since World War II. Same time, same routes, same weights. And so the feeling of being awarded the coveted Green Beret means something. Because everybody who's worn it before has done the same stuff, right? It's that kind of esprit de corps. But I was in training towards the end, around week 26, 27. And we're on Dartmoor on a river crossing and cliff assault exercise. And one of the training team had to go off to get some stuff, and they was coming back in the Land Rover. They had the radio on, and they heard about 9/11. And so they sat us down in this muddy field, freezing cold, starving, and said, look, if you're lucky enough to get through the next few weeks, it wasn't a given you would, right? You're going to go straight out on operations. And that's exactly what happened. So I was posted to 4-5 Commando in Arbroath, who were spearhead for the armed forces at the time. And our kit packed at the end of our beds, 24 hours notice to move. And then in early 2002, we got the call and we sailed out as the first conventional British troops to deploy to the region. With one mission, basically, and that was to find a guy called Osama bin Laden.
Wow.
And that really was the first glimpse. I mean, I joined to soldier, right? I joined to serve. So we were excited about this. But it was the first glimpse into understanding, I suppose, the art of leadership and what truly high-performing teams look and feel like.
Yeah. What, on the learns then that you picked up there, I can imagine that, by the way, you turning up in your grey suit and then a couple of days later, this guy's showing you how to wash his balls. That must be a humbling experience to say the least.
Weird.
Weird as well. But what were the things you learned then around just camaraderie or being in a high-performing team, do you think, from that experience?
I think the point of commando training is to prove to you that you are way more capable than you believe that you are. So that kind of life without limits motto that I live now was born in the commandos, right? Born in the Royal Marines. And we'll talk more about resilience and self-belief later on, but it's building you into a person who believes that at least you've got a shot. Because quite often you're going to be faced, particularly on the battlefield, with situations where perhaps the odds are stacked against you. And you've got a choice, man. Like, what are you going to do? You need to lean into that problem. You need to lean into it and at least give it a go and try and see it through. So I think that's the purpose of commando training. And it really does set you up for life. Like, once you know that you're a person who can achieve things that most of the people can't achieve. You know, the motto when I joined, it was the worst advertising campaign in the world, by the way. 99.9% need not apply. That's what they used to say in the Marines. So guess what? 99.9% didn't apply. Yeah. They were after the 0.1%. You know, 60 guys start, 9 finish. Of those 60 who start, thousands apply. Your very small numbers make it through. But if you do, you normally go on to do great things.
Wow. And what did you and the other 8 people have that maybe the other 52 didn't in that particular scenario?
Well, that's a good question. Honestly, there was not a moment. My uncle bet me 50 quid I won't make it. That's how much confidence my family had in me. Like, none of my family had done it. But I knew the moment I stepped through the gates of Livingston Commando to start that training course, I was not leaving. I was not leaving without a Green Beret. It wasn't even a question in my mind. There could be no chink in your armour. You know, like, anyone who had any self-doubt, they very quickly found them out. Yeah. So I was going in there and I was coming out Marine, that was it. And I think those 8 guys shared that with us.
Yeah, interesting. I think there's something around everyone wearing the same, having the same haircut. Almost everyone's on that level, and even like what you did before doesn't really matter. It's about what you do now. So love that. So you were in the Marines for how long in total?
5.5 years.
5.5 years. And what did you then go on to do next?
Well, in the Marines, I deployed to Afghanistan for 6 months, and then got promoted, went to Iraq for 6 months for the war in 2003, led Royal Marines to war there, and then went to Northern Ireland for 6 months. So within that 5.5 years, 3 operational tours, 3 medals, 3 amazing opportunities to soldier at the very highest level. And then I was heading down the Special Forces pathway, which I wanted to go and do. A few of my friends had been down there, and the Royal Marines wanted me to go back to Limston, do my commando course again, to become an officer, to lead more broadly. They described me as having a natural ability to command my peers. And at the time, there was no leadership courses, man. But I now know I'd been leading from 10 years old, looking after my brother and sister when my dad left, right? So I just had this natural ability to get people to follow me and do stuff. So they wanted me to go do that. I wanted to do Special Forces. I actually did neither. And I resigned, and I applied for a job which I didn't really think existed. And the reason I decided to leave the military was, more than anything else, Carl, I wanted a family. I wanted a thing that I didn't feel like I had growing up, or certainly the way I would have liked it. And I knew the military wasn't the place for a family, particularly Special Forces. So I applied for the MOD. Now, look, we talked about this off air. I've got to tiptoe around this issue because what I ended up doing for the next 15 years was in the covert world. And what I am allowed to say is that I'm a human specialist, so a human intelligence specialist. In spy speak, that means agent handler, right? Running covert agents. And I was a covert counterterrorism operations leader within the intelligence and security fields of the MOD. I can't say any more about the title of the organisation. That's what I'm allowed to say. But it was a wonderful 15 years of continuing to serve. But just much like I was in commando training when 9/11 happened, I was in training in MOD when 7/7 happened, the London bombings. In fact, I was on the tube that morning. Wow. So again, I was thrust into the busiest period of defence we'd ever seen in the UK. At the height of the terror threat with Al-Qaeda and the emergence of ISIS. And that was my life, mate. I was surrounded by terror for 20 years. Running surveillance teams all around the country, recruiting covert agents and working undercover. And it was an exciting and wonderful career.
Wow. Love it. As much as I would love to go into the fine intricate details, I know that is not possible, but what we'd like to get from today is more so the lessons that you've learned in that part of your career. And one I want to talk about is leadership. You touched on it there from the age of 10. There was no courses. You just had to do it by default, by design. When it comes to leadership, what, in your opinion, makes a great leader? The reason I ask this, and I think your experience is so relevant, is what we do in business, what we do in sales, compared to what you kind of did. There's nothing. We just try and get people to hit targets, achieve their personal goals. Leading the teams that you had to lead, often could have been a matter of life or death. So what are the lessons that you learned to get people to really want to buy into your vision and what you wanted to achieve?
There's no difference. Leading in the boardroom or leading the battlefield, there's no difference. Ultimately, people aren't going to follow you unless they believe in you. And they're not going to follow you unless they care about you and you care about them. So more than anything else, I think a leader needs to lead with empathy. They need to lead with love. And that sounds a bit fluffy, but I'm telling you, that's what matters. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Like, that's just the way it is. So I think you need credibility. And when I say credibility, you need to be able to walk the walk. And you need to be trustworthy. And they need to believe in you. We talked about Boris Johnson off air briefly, right? Like, you ain't following him into battle in a million years. Never mind into business, right? Because he's not credible. None of our politicians are. And we'll talk about authenticity later, and that's a big part of it too, right? So you've got to be credible. You've got to be courageous as a leader. Because quite often you're out in the spotlight and you've got to make decisions. And I don't mean brave. I mean the courage to challenge the status quo, to do things differently. The reason Special Forces are so revered for the way they're able to work or the way we worked in my world is that we challenged what was the norm. We did things different and we found different ways to get results. So you need courage, you need credibility, you need clarity. Clarity as a leader in the mission that all of your people are following and the expectations you have on yourself and on others. And then, these are my 4 C's, by the way. And you need composure as well. And I used to have 3 C's. It was courage, clarity, credibility. And then I was on a military leadership webinar. Myself, Tom Petch, who was an SAS commander, Helen Seymour, who was the first ever Typhoon female fighter pilot, like legend. And she said, I've got a 4th C for you. What is it? And she says, composure. I think as a leader, it's our responsibility when the wheels are falling off to remain calm. And there's a great saying in the Special Forces as well, that calm is contagious. If you start flapping as a leader, the whole team's going to start flapping. So stay calm and carry on.
Stay calm and carry on. Absolutely love that. And 2 of the words you said at the beginning before the 4 C's was, I think it was love and empathy. To kind of challenge that, because I think from an outsider looking in, they are just probably not 2 words I would associate with the military, special ops. So how did you go about demonstrating love and empathy with your team?
Well, you don't demonstrate it, you have to live it. Well, you have to genuinely care.
Yeah.
And I genuinely love the Marines that I served with, mate. You know, they were my best friends and my family. And I would have given my life for them. You know, that's the truth. I think on a slightly less deep level, perhaps, one of the commando qualities of which you have to have is unselfishness. So if we're not talking love, if that's too deep for you, which it shouldn't be, by the way, but if it is.
No, it can be deep.
Unselfishness is the glue that pulls teams together. And high-performing teams that have unselfish behaviours, when the shit goes down, they pull together. And teams who don't have that glue, they pull apart under pressure. That's the way it is. And so I always encourage people in business to try and exude those unselfish behaviours. And that doesn't need to be serving your country, going to war. That could be bringing a coffee in for your colleague in the morning. That could be checking in on a member of staff or your boss for that matter after a tough day at work. You know, it's just demonstrating that you're thinking about other people before you think of yourself. You have to do that in the military or you just don't fit in. And I think if we did that in business more, teams would be way more productive and high performing.
Yeah, agree. And I think you might have said it before, and something that we share even in sales, but leadership as well, is that it's never about us as much as we would like it to be. It's all about them, whether that be the other person you're trying to sell to or the person that is in your team that you're trying to lead and manage. It's not about us as much as we love it to be.
I agree. I think it's all about you because it is your responsibility as a leader. So you can't pass the buck. It is all about you, but it's nothing about you at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of challenge of a leader, right? Like you have to own it. You can't just pass it off. It is your responsibility. It's your responsibility to be courageous and challenge stuff. It's your responsibility to be clear and to be credible and live those values. But it's absolutely your responsibility to unlock the hidden potential in others because that is your role. That is your job. So it's both.
Yeah. I think we had someone else on the podcast that talked about leadership in that almost as a leader, you're there to serve them, the people in your team as well, rather than the other way around, which I thought was a really interesting way to look at it. But going from your kind of military background then, you did it for 20 years. I think you said you served for half of your life and then decided to kind of leave and do something else. So what kind of motivated that decision?
Well, it was lockdown, right? So lockdown happened and I'd done 20 years. I was just turned 40 and I was offered another 20 years, right? Like the easy option, which 99.9% of people took, was job security, pension, fulfillment in your role, all that kind of stuff. And again, credibility. Like I live a life without limits. Like that's what I believe in. That's what I live. So I resigned again in lockdown. Wife thought I'd gone mad. But ultimately, both my boys were poorly when they were born. And my youngest lad was 9 weeks early. He was £3, it was see-through. And we were in and out of intensive care for a long, long time with him. We got him home. And he contracted meningitis. He was back in, a really, really poorly baby. And we almost lost him a few times. And that experience of being in that environment and understanding for the first time that the kit and equipment that we take for granted in our hospitals isn't bought by the NHS, it's bought by charities. Really left a mark on me, as did the experience, of course, of seeing my son fighting for his life. So for 10 years, from the age of 30 to 40, every year on his birthday, mate, on the 20th of February, I'd give him his presents and I'd just break down in tears. And it was like an unlocked box of trauma that kept pouring out me every year. And so I got to 40, lockdown happened, and I just thought, I need to repay this debt. I need to raise money for this hospital unit that saved my lad. So I approached my employer and I said, look, I know I'm not allowed a social media account. I know I'm not allowed my face or my name online, but I want to raise money and I want to do something big. And initially their response was, we'll support you, what a great idea. And then very quickly, people in that organisation started to like question it. And I think if I'm being really honest, I think if they're being really honest, they just didn't like the idea of doing something different. And so they gave me an ultimatum. And they said, look, you can keep your job and pack this idea of this charity thing in, or not. Fully expected me at the start of lockdown to say, okay, well, I'll leave it and I'll carry on. And I just wrote my letter of resignation.
Wow.
And they were quite surprised, to say the least. And I went on to start my own business and ultimately raised 137 grand for the hospital.
Wow. Incredible. Inspirational stuff as well. And we'll come on to exactly how you raise that money in a second. You mentioned life without limits a couple of times now, and I love the hand gesture you do as well. It's like your trademark. Yeah, I love it. Where does that come from?
It's kind of I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? I've been training since 2001. Before we went because we were going to Afghanistan in the Tora Bora region, the high mountains in between Pakistan and Afghanistan, because that's where Bin Laden was hiding, right? So we're trying to find him, blowing all his caves up, having a right good time. And we thought we're going to have to fight with our hands in the caves against the Taliban. So we started grappling. And kind of that hang loose is a kind of Brazilian jiu-jitsu kind of thing. Just means kind of be cool or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of stuck. That's all I ever do. I can't even do a thumbs up without the little finger.
It's just popping out there.
Limit, yeah.
Love it. And life without limits then. Again, it's something you've mentioned a couple of times already. It's something that means a lot to you. What is, to those people listening, what is a life without limits?
It's doing whatever you want to do. I think, we don't need to overcomplicate this. Life is full of choices. Every single minute of every single day, you can choose to do whatever you want. But for whatever reason, we tell ourselves that we don't have choice. Oh, I'm stuck in this job. I'm stuck in this relationship. No, you're not. You can decide to resign tonight if you want. You can leave your partner tomorrow if you want. Like, you can do whatever you want in life. But you place the limitation on yourself because you have a lack of self-belief. I think you need to build, as we'll talk about later, this wall of evidence to make yourself believe what you're capable of. Because once you have this unshakable self-belief, and it's not courage, it's not bravery, it's not arrogance. It's like, it's a knowing. Okay, I've got what it takes to do whatever I want to do. Go out and live your life. Because the worst thing you can do is put it off. I'll do it next year. I'll do it in 10 years' time. You blink, you're in your 80s, you've run out of time, and you've got a load of regrets. That to me is a tragedy in life. So what I stand for is to say to people, look, you've got an opportunity now to write the narrative of the rest of your life. Starting today. You can be anything you want to be. You can be a Hollywood actor. You could be whatever you want to be. Racing car driver. Whatever. I don't care. Make it happen. The only limitations on that is you and the courage and the self-belief it takes to get started.
Brilliant. Go out there and live a life without limits, people. Do it.
Well, what's the alternative? The alternative is regret. I wish I'd done that. Should have done that. Nah, don't do that, man. You get one shot.
Yeah.
Get it done.
I think it's a scary thing, that regret. You described it as a tragedy, but being there when you're older, whatever age you may be, going, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd gone to that place. Oh, I should have said yes to that. So I completely agree. And I think live a life without limits is a good way to encapsulate that. You said living a life without limits and is doing the things that you wanted to do. And you wanted to raise money for charity, completely understandably so. A lot of people might run a marathon. A lot of people might do the 3 peaks. A lot of people might do other things. You decided to row across the Atlantic Ocean. Where did the idea come from, first of all?
Well, it was locked down, so I was like, I need to raise a lot of money. I wanted to raise 70,000 quid. Don't ask me why, but I wanted to raise 70 grand. And it was start of lockdown, no one had any money, businesses were tight. I thought, I need to find something that's mental. Like, if people are going to give me any money in lockdown, it has to be crazy. So I started to look around, and I read a stat that said more people climb Everest this year than have ever rode an ocean solo. I was like, okay. Ocean rowing sounds pretty tough. And doing it on your own sounds really tough. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. So initially I set off with this idea of doing it as a pair. My wife said, well, first of all, she said no. And then I said, this is a true story, by the way. So this is August 2019. I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to row across the Atlantic as a pair, raise some money. She's like, no, you're not. I said, okay. She said, it's too dangerous. It's over Christmas. We've got young kids. Like, you can't do it. I said, oh, no problem. So on the quiet, she didn't know this. In October, I said to myself, right, every shower you have in October has to be freezing cold. And if you do that for all of October, all 31 days, you can go back and have a conversation with Sarah again, like if it means that much to you. So literally, honestly, My kid's life, every shower I had for the whole month of October were freezing cold, like full on cold. And I'm shivering. I get to the end of October, I said, love, I've been freezing to death for a month. Can we have another conversation about this? And I think she understood then that I was serious about it. So she said, you can do it as a pair, so it's safe, right? Okay, no problem. And then I met a guy who said, yeah, but if you do it as a pair, you can only ever say you rode halfway across. You can't say stuff to me like that. So I was like, right, forget that idea. So I said to Sarah in December 2019, I think it was, I'm going to do it as a soloist. And just because no one does it, mate. No one does it. It's so hard. You're closer to someone on the International Space Station than you are to someone on land in the middle. Wow. It's 4 miles deep. It's 3,000 miles. But it was one of those kind of epic campaigns that I knew if I got right and I put the work in, I could achieve it. I believed I could do it. And I knew that people would get behind it, and they did.
Yeah. And I think, well, almost a special day. We're recording this. Tomorrow is the 2-year anniversary of you setting off.
Yeah, so I pushed off on the 12th of December 2022. Was away over Christmas. Didn't see another human being for all that time. I was out on the ocean for 46 days, 6 hours and 10 minutes. Wow. Fastest British person ever to do that race, which I'm really proud about. But obviously not as proud as the real reason I did it. And we were able to buy 6 neonatal monitoring machines for the unit that saved Gabriel's life. We gave 50 grand to Kev Sinfield and Rob Burrow and their MND appeal. And then another 20,000 pounds to a general pot. So really proud about that. And, you know, it once you've seen the difference that fundraising can make, it really is a bug that you need to keep doing. So I've already got other plans. I said I'd never run over ocean, but what's this space? It'll be a few more to be done, I think.
Is it too soon to share?
That's exclusive. Details? Yeah, I can't, unfortunately, because there's some people who you will know who are doing it on board. So, but when the time's right, we'll share it.
Wow. I look forward to hearing the next endeavour. And going into the challenge then, it seemed like the fundraising was the key motivator. And I think it's so powerful what can be achieved when the reason you're doing it is so important, is so impactful. Do you think you would have still done it if you didn't have that kind of deeper rooted motivation and kind of cause you were actually doing it for?
No, because I think ultimately we've got to find an intrinsic motivation, right? Something like an ocean row, if you're motivated extrinsically by Instagram likes, or this will look good online or whatever, you ain't going to do the prep that's required. They've just set off today. They were a day early on the 2024 race. I was out there last week. They invited me back as a safety officer to help inspect the teams. And within 4 hours, they've already had to rescue one solo rower. Look, I'm not going to comment on their campaign, but you need to prepare like your life depends on it. I prepared for 3 years. 200 hours at sea in my ocean rowing boat. 6 sessions a week, strength and conditioning sessions around my jiu-jitsu. And I said to my strength and conditioning coach, I said, listen, whatever you prescribe for the next 3 years, I will not miss 1 rep. And he looked at me and said, listen, I'm telling you, not a set, not a session, not 1 rep. And there was one time, and I was doing a marathon row every New Year's Day at 5 a.m, just crazy training. And there was one day that I missed out 2 exercises from my warm-up, not even the main workout. I went back that night and did them. Because in my mind, once I was out on the ocean, there couldn't be any doubt that I'd done the work. And I suppose the result speaks for itself.
Wow. What an incredible achievement, and obviously the fundraise as well. I'd like to get into a little bit about the road, just more questions that when I saw the boat, I was like, where did you get changed? Where did you go to the toilet? What was it actually like being there in the ocean on your own?
Brutal. But people said, oh, you're going to go smash the ocean. No one smashes the ocean. Mother Nature's in charge, right? If you're lucky enough to get across, then, and you're prepared well, then you will. So to answer your question specifically, I didn't get changed. So I got washed once a week. And I used to have to go off the side of the boat, obviously you're tied on, because if you get disconnected from the boat at any point, you're dead, right? That's the thing as a soloist. You can't disconnect from the boat. So I was clipped on the whole time, but I clip another line to myself. Every week I would get out of the boat. It's 4 miles deep. That's from here to God knows where in Manchester, M60 or whatever, deep. And swim underneath the boat with an ice scraper out in the glove box of your car and clean all the barnacles off because they would slow you down. And it's the most beautiful blue colour, gorgeous. I didn't see any fish. I thought, oh, this is just magical. And then someone told me when I finished, went, if you don't see any fish, that means there's predators about. Shit. So there's sharks and there was marlin there and the big swordfish things. But I saw dolphins and it was just absolutely wonderful. So I used to get off, clean the boat once a week, and then I would wash myself in clean water. Well, you make your own water with a water maker, and then I would wash my clothes, dry them whilst I wore a spare kit, and then change back into them. So I wore the same clothes 6.5 days a week. And you go to the toilet in a bucket. So that is the ensuite. It's just a builder's bucket and chuck it. And yeah, I rode anywhere between 14 and 17 hours a day.
Wow.
In one big block. So if me and you were doing it, we'd probably do like 2 hours on, 2 hours off continuously for 24 hours. But as a soloist, I could do what I wanted, and I wanted to row throughout the day when I could see the ocean and interact with the ocean. So yeah, 14, 17 hours a day, brutal. But the hardest thing by far, way more than those 4 million oar strokes that get you from one side of the ocean to the other, and the blisters and the sores and the cramps and my ACL and everything, was the loneliness. It was debilitating. And I said, I've been to war, man. I said to my wife, look, I'll call you twice a week. I want to enjoy the silence. Wow, how stupid I was. And I called her twice a day, every day, crying. Because it's only once you're alone, truly alone, you realise the importance of this, mate. This human connection that we have. It is everything that life's all about. There is nothing else. You're no good alone. Nothing good happens alone. We tell ourselves, I'll be all right, mate. You won't. I can do this on my own. You can't. That was a solo row, but when I stood on stage in Antigua, I made certain that everyone knew it was a team effort. Beth Tweddle, I listened to her speak today, the amazing Olympic gymnast, and she was out there for 35 seconds doing a routine, and she did exactly the same. It's all of the team around you that make it happen. Yeah, nothing good happens alone. So that loneliness was a real eye-opener, and not something I want to experience again.
Wow. Well, maybe until the next endeavour, who knows? You'll have some friends to do.
Well, I said I wouldn't do an ocean row again. I definitely wouldn't do a solo ocean row again, but I would definitely do a team. I am doing a team row again.
Yeah. Oh, watch your space. And what did you have to eat?
Rations, like dehydrated food. So I had to take 85 days worth of food. In the race I did it in 46 days. A week later, the second place person finished. A week after them, third place finished. Wow. And then there was 3 others who took 120 days. So like, God knows what they were doing, just getting floating across. But that was preparation, right? Like that is the difference between someone who prepares, like the life depends on it, and someone who doesn't and doesn't give the respect it deserves. So you have to take 85 days worth of food. I ate it all in 46 days because I just saw it as dead weight on the boat. I'm like, I just want to get there faster, make this boat lighter. So dehydrated, like space food rations, loads of snacks. I had a chocolate bar every Sunday and a can of pop every 500 miles. That was my treats.
What was the kind of pop that you had?
Just a Diet Coke. Didn't have full fat Coke. That's how boring I am. But I don't drink. I hadn't drunk since the row. I hadn't drunk for 2 years.
Wow.
Just because when I was training, I wanted to be able to train and perform well the next day.
Yeah.
So I just got out of the habit and I'm bothered since.
Yeah. Wow. Love it. Well, I know you said at the beginning, nothing special, but incredible achievement. And I think I read somewhere the last 48 hours, you spent 22 hours rowing non-stop into a 20-knot headwind. Yeah, that can't be
well,
easy.
From the side, yeah, but it was.
Yeah.
And then the last 7 hours was a non-stop, like max effort row, just to get into Antigua. Because if you're south of Antigua as a soloist, it's called the rum line. You can't get back in. You just basically head down on the Caribbean to Guadeloupe and then keep going. So you have to stay above the rum line, and the weather was coming in from the north. And I rang up my wife. I don't know. Maybe she's a witch. I don't know. No offense, love. But she was in Antigua. The kids were there, and my auntie and my mum was there. And one night she just said, "I've got a funny feeling Mike's going to call." Don't ask me why. That night I'd been pushed south. I rang the safety officer. He didn't answer on the sat phone. I'm like, ring my wife. She's like, I'm in bed with your auntie. Kim, I knew you were going to call. I was like, no way. Ring the safety officer. He rings me back. He said, yeah, everyone's on parachute anchor. Everyone's kind of like, you send out basically a 90-meter line with a parachute on the end, and it holds you in the water so you don't drift. He said, you just have to do that and just wait it out. I was like, I ain't going to parachute anchor, mate. He's like, no, you don't understand. Like, everyone's doing it. I said, no. My family are 32 miles away. Like, I am going to row non-stop till I get there. And again, you talk about motivation, right? Initially, the campaign was conceived with the motivation of raising money. But literally the moment I set off, the motivation changed to see my family again and getting there alive. So it's funny how motivations can ebb and flow and shift. And that was a real lesson for me there. But that last 22 hours, I mean, even I didn't think that was possible.
Yeah. Well, very, very impressive. And one of the things we spoke about beforehand, I want to touch on now is the word resilience. The reason being, in the world that we're in, sales, it gets thrown about all of the time. You've got to be resilient. You've got to deal with setbacks. You've got to deal with challenges in business, in what you did as well. Resilience, very, very important. I know you've got a slightly different take on, I don't think we don't believe in resilience, but actually self-belief probably being more important. And you alluded to the wall of evidence earlier. So I just want to share around your thoughts and ideas behind self-belief.
Yeah, so the questions I get asked the most when I speak on stage for businesses or sports teams, whatever, is like, how do you deal with that 40-foot wave in the dead of night? That capsize, your life's in danger. How do you deal with the Taliban waiting for you in Afghanistan? Leaping out of a Chinook helicopter into the most mined country on earth, might not be coming home. How do you deal with that terrorist who maybe wants to take your life or whatever? And the truth of the matter is, you don't know how you're going to cope with it. And you don't need resilience in that moment. What you actually need is self-belief. You're going to experience setbacks. You're going to experience failures. But you need to believe you've at least got what it takes to give it a go. Even if you don't make it, you've got to try. That's not resilience. So for me, you've got to create this self-belief from somewhere, because it's not something I can talk to you about now and you're going to have. It's not something you're born with. You can't read about it in a book and get it. You can't listen to a podcast. You've got to create it. And the way you create it, I believe, is by continuously setting yourself goals. And so you can start small, right? But every time you set yourself a goal and you walk the path between where you are now and that person you're going to become, that slightly better version of yourself, you place a brick in the wall. You do it again and again and again. And you build this wall of evidence that I talk about, which is all of the times you've struggled and overcame that struggle. And so when you're faced with a real challenge at work or at home or on the Atlantic Ocean, wherever, you can glance behind you. You can see this wall of evidence that gives you the strength to believe you've got a shot and you're going to go and give it a go again. That's more important than resilience, because it actually means something. It's a tangible creation of a better version of you, a stronger version of you. And that's why I believe it's way more important than being resilient.
Yeah. Brilliant. No, I really like that. I've like this, the evidence piece as well. And it's almost, I have done this before, so I can do this. It's almost building that up over time and time and time. And you mentioned around setting a goal, whatever that may be, at some point in the future. This episode will be going out most likely at the beginning of January. So goal setting, resolutions, whatever it may be, very, very apt to talk about. What are your kind of ideas? And I think you even might have a framework behind goal setting, more so that anyone listening to this beginning of January can actually make sure they achieve what they set out to, or at least get as close to as they possibly can do in 2025.
Yeah, I'll share that with you in a moment. What I would say is you don't have to start goals in January, right? It should be a continuous evolution of yourself. Life in my mind is us trying to become the very best versions of ourselves as a process that is living in my mind. And there's a great book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. You should listen to it or read it. Frankl survived Auschwitz, right, as a psychologist. And he realized the people who survived Auschwitz weren't the strongest. They were the ones who believed in a better life outside of the gates. And the ones who could believe in that had hope, and they created hope by continuously setting these goals. I'm going to do this tomorrow. I'm going to just walk a few more steps tomorrow. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, whatever it is. So this continuous evolution of goal setting is really key, but quite often people don't know where to start. So the framework that I've developed, I call my mindset principles. MIND. And the first, of course, is motivation. You got to know why the hell you're doing it. And it's got to be intrinsic. It's got to matter to you deep inside. And the way you can kind of peel that back is by asking yourself why 3 times. So if you came to me and said, Mike, I want to lose a bit of weight. Not that you do, fella, but let's say you do, right? I'd say, okay, why is that? You might say, well, I feel a bit uncomfortable in my clothes, and I was on holiday last year, I felt a bit embarrassed taking my top off, whatever. Okay, why is that an issue? Well, I've got a young son, and he noticed that I felt a bit weird, and he kept his top on. Okay, why does that matter to you? Well, I want to be a great role model for my son, and I want him to be healthy and live a healthy. That's the real reason you're losing weight. So you're going to dig into that. It's got to be intrinsic. So that's the first thing. You have a motivation, a really strong why. The next is I, and you've got to have an intention. Like, what the hell is it you're going to go and do? Because again, there's so many choices out there. You can choose any. You could choose a million different ways to lose weight, but it's got to be one you're going to stick to and that you're going to try and enjoy doing. So motivation, intention, and this is the big one. 92% of goals are never achieved because they never start. You've got to have nerve. That's the end. Motivation, intention, nerve. The nerve to even start, to have a go. And I think the best thing you can do when you're thinking about setting a goal, before you've even started, is tell everyone about it. I was telling people I was rowing across an ocean way before I'd had that conversation with my wife. I was telling people I was leaving the MOD way before I resigned. Because that creates accountability. If you tell me you're going to lose a few pounds in January, not that you do, by the way, I'm going to come back and ask you how it's going. Do you know what I mean? It creates this accountability. So you've got the nerve to get going. And the final piece of the jigsaw, motivation, intention, nerve, is discipline. And discipline's doing the hard stuff when no one's watching, right? It's doing that session on the rowing machine when there's no one there. On New Year's Day at 5:30 in the morning, it's pitch black. It's going to take you 3.5 hours. Kids are still in bed. Everyone's been out on the sauce the night before and you haven't. But it's also crucially looking ahead at the challenge that's in front of you and saying, okay, what are the possible roadblocks or bumps I'm going to face? And having the discipline to think ahead and come up with strategies that mitigate the chance that you're going to fail. So motivation, intention, nerve, and discipline. I would say this though about any goal you set. You don't actually have to succeed for it to be a success. What you've got to do is give it a right good go. Because there's going to be stumbles in life. You're going to fail. That is part of the process. And you've got to see failure as a gift. Same as feedback in business, right? It is a gift. If I give you feedback, I give you it because I care about you, because I want you to be better. So every time you don't quite meet that challenge, you don't quite lose if it's not like you do. As long as you've walked that path and given it a go, you put another brick in the wall. That's all you need to do.
Love it. Particularly the accountability piece as well, because can't remember where I read it or saw the stat, but I think it's goals that when you tell everyone about it, you're just much more likely to achieve it because you've got that sense of accountability.
And you manifest it, right? Have you seen Jim Carrey when he was on the Oprah show back in 96? Have you seen that? Oh man, so cool. So Jim Carrey basically was waiting tables in Hollywood. And every night he would drive up onto Mulholland Drive and look down over the studios and he'd imagine himself as this like world famous actor. And all these producers wanted to work with him. And he wrote himself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered. And he closed it up, put it in his wallet, and forgot about it. And he dated it Thanksgiving 1995. So it was early 90s this, Thanksgiving 1995. Just before Thanksgiving 1995, he got cast in Dumb and Dumber and got paid $10 million.
Wow.
And he still got the check. And so this manifestation of our belief system, if you believe, it's that classic, if you can believe you can achieve it, like you've got to be able to at least start and have a sense it's possible. That's where self-belief comes in, right? You build this wall of evidence, you give yourself a go. And if you do that, it's surprising how many things turn out in your favor.
Yeah, brilliant. Dumb and Dumber is one of my favourite films as well. Interestingly, yeah, great film, hilarious. We're kind of coming to the last couple of points I want to touch on today, but one thing I've heard you speak about in the past that is important in all walks of life, specifically the world that we're in business and sales, and it's probably something that people maybe lack or perceive to lack sometimes, is authenticity. So what is that to you? I.e., how can people be their authentic selves? I think sometimes it's a bit more difficult than people think it's more difficult than it is.
It's very simple, I think, but again, far too often, particularly in the modern age with social media and hyper connection to other people, we care far too much about what other people or what we perceive other people think of us than we do about ourselves. And what we actually create most often in business is a persona. So the Kyle that comes to work today might not be the actual Kyle that is at home. The Latin for persona is mask. So you come to work with a mask on every single day and it's not actually you. And the issue with that is that I don't know which kind of Kyle I'm getting today. Is it going to be the real you or the one with the mask on? And on the battlefield or in elite sport, and I've done this work with the Leeds Rhinos recently, you've got to trust the guy left or right of you and know that they're going to do the job. But if I'm not sure which one guy I'm getting, I take my eye off what I'm supposed to be doing. And so authenticity is crucial because it builds trust. A great American general once said that trust is tempo. In business, if you have trust, you can move fast because I'm concentrating on what I'm doing. I'm not worried about you because I know you're being yourself. You're doing your job. And so it's the alignment of three things, mate. It's very, very simple in my mind. It's what you think, it's what you say and what you do. If you think a certain way, you believe a certain value system, and you speak about it in a way that matches what you think, you are authentic. And if you say certain things and then your actions match the things that you say, you do what you said you're going to do, then you're authentic. But if you're in a business meeting and you're thinking, this is a load of rubbish, and then they ask your opinion, you say, oh yeah, it's great, that's inauthentic. And there's no trust there. And the absence of that trust means you're going to have an absence of high performance because you can't have it. It's the genesis of true leadership, in my opinion, authenticity. It goes back to that courage that a leader needs to be themselves. It's the cornerstone of high performance, and it's the foundation of happiness. When we are ourselves, when we're brave enough and courageous enough to be us, we really find fulfillment. And without that, or with the mask on, we're never going to find that. It's crucial to being happy as a human being, and it's crucial to being successful in business. You've got to be yourself, man.
Love it. I think there's so many examples where people say they're going to do something and then don't do it, and straight away that is just damaging that trust and authenticity. And it's just such a simple way to be more authentic and probably perform better in your role, whatever that may be. So really, really good advice there. We spoke a lot about rowing across the Atlantic. We've not touched on kind of what you do now. So obviously you left the MOD, rowed the Atlantic, but you've got your own business now and obviously public speaking. So just share with us a little bit more around what Mike Bates is up to nowadays.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, so, I mean, look, as I said at the very beginning, my life is about serving others. I know that's why I'm here. Interestingly, a friend of mine, you might know, called Kevin Sinfield, he speaks very, very similarly. That's what he's here to do. He played rugby. That was a service in a way, but raising money for MND and for Rob Burrow is kind of what he's all about. And I'm very, very similar. So I've got a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academy in North Leeds. Started in lockdown, teaching 3 people online on a laptop. Now the biggest in the north of England, 540 students. Massive business. I've got an amazing team that I built to run that for us, and I'm involved in it every single week. I've got another business which I co-founded called NXT45, which is all about helping men navigate midlife. And we do events and retreats and stuff. It's amazing. And that's kind of my passion, really, about helping people, and helping men particularly be a little bit more vulnerable, a bit more honest. And then, I've carved out somehow, I don't know how, a career in public speaking. And it's all organic, like I was in the shadows all my life. So the idea now that tomorrow I'll be in Milton Keynes on stage in front of 500 people, sharing my story, sharing these things we've talked about today. And then I'll be doing the same again in London. It is, in my mind, just another way to help. I always say if there's one person in the audience, one person listening to this podcast today, who takes one thing I've said and it makes 1% of difference, it's been worth the trip, mate. So, I do a lot of different stuff. I'm desperate to write a book, which we've been talking about for a long, long time. It's becoming really challenging to get through the MOD, but I'm passionate about doing that. I think we will do it. And I want to do that to help people again. And of course, we've got a lot more fundraising to do. As I said before, once you see the difference your actions can make to other people, it really is the greatest currency in the world. There's nothing quite like it, and I want to go on to raise millions of pounds for other people.
Brilliant. And on the quickly on the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu thing, what are the plans for the club that you've got?
I mean, that is a beast. Most Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academies are, 150, 200 students. We're like 3
times. Kind of 10, 20 years ago, was it?
It was like Fight Club back then. It was great. It was like, if you knew grappling like that, it was magic. You never lost a fight. Not that I fought a lot, but it was magic. So the idea is to build that business into a world-renowned flagship academy with over 1,000 students. But ultimately, it's about helping other people more broadly than that. So we bring people together as a community. They experience adversity, much like the military, much like rugby, where you struggle together and you build those close bonds. But I want to push wider into the community. So we sponsor all the local rugby teams and football teams. We sponsor the community's fireworks night. We've just helped with the Sadulo Present Foundation, Present Toy Appeal, and given 100 gifts to them. We sponsor a Ukrainian refugee, and I want to do more stuff like that. But I'll open a few more as well, I think, and just spread this idea that people, again, can achieve more than they think they can, right? And you find yourself on the mats. And the beautiful thing about it, without going too much down a rabbit hole, is no matter how much money you've got, no matter what background you've come from, when you're grappling, we're all equal, we're all the same. And we see the real you. And it's a chance for people, again, to just find that community and to be together. It's really what life's all about.
Brilliant. Good stuff. I love a lot of the things you talked about today can be applied to pretty much anything that you do as well. You know, in your instance, it's been the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy, military, obviously the sporting endeavors. They all can be applied to sales and business as well. I think that's what's so good around the things that you've shared today. Very quickly on NXT 45, because I know that men being more vulnerable is really important to you, and just men's mental health in general. What are you looking to achieve through that business?
Fundamentally, we want to shift the dial on the men's health conversation. We want to start it, really. I mean, society has never had a conversation about men. We've had some really fantastic conversations about some really worthwhile topics around gender and race and equality. We've never spoken about men. Because there's been this societal acceptance that just man up. You're a bloke, just get on with it. Men don't cry. Go provide, go protect. But the role of the man's changed. And so when I turned 40, I went off and rode this ocean, but I knew I felt a bit different. And I started to look into the men's health statistics just in the UK, and I was staggered. When we co-founded X45, 3 out of 4 people who killed themselves were men. 1 in 8 men have a mental health issue. Yet we're the least likely to ask for help. We die younger than women. 96% of the prison population are men. Like, it's not good. Kids now, boys are being left behind in GCSEs and A-levels by a mile compared to girls. And so I want to start to talk about this issue. And one of the main reasons why we struggle to do this is guys feel shame. Bernie Brown spoke about this. Guys feel shame when they ask for help, or they feel like they're struggling, like I'm not a real man. And what I'm trying to do is say, look, you can be a Royal Marine Commando, you can be in the Special Forces, or you can be in James Bond, whoever you were. You can also cry in a rowing boat when you're in the mid-Atlantic. You can tell people you love them. You can lead with love and empathy. That's not weakness. That is the greatest courage you can have as a man, to be open and to be vulnerable like that. And so I want to change that. Not because I'm banging a masculine drum, absolutely not. I believe that when men live happier, healthier, more fulfilled lives, everyone wins. We're better fathers, we're better partners, we're better leaders, we're better friends. It's for the goodness of everybody in society. But we have to start helping guys a bit more.
Brilliant. Love it. Well, check out the journal. I believe you write every Sunday. And the 100 event, is it? It'll be next year
September,
now.
Mate. Yeah, 5th to the 7th of September. NXT45.com.
Cool. Definitely check it out. Where else can people check out your content and stuff as well if they wanted to do so?
Yeah, head to mikebates.uk. You can see what I'm up to there. Instagram, Mike Bates Official. LinkedIn, Mike Bates. I think I'm on TikTok now for the kids. My boys, I've got 2 teenage boys. They are mortified that the dad's on TikTok. I've got more followers than them. So you can check me out there. And yeah, just get in touch. I always say this, and I'm setting myself up for a bit of a fall here at some point, but I say it to every audience I speak in, mate. If there's someone out there struggling, or you think I can help in some way, send me a message. I will 100% get back to you. If I can help, I will. If I can point you in the direction of someone who can, I will. And if I can't, then at least I'll try my best.
I think that's a great way to end, Mike. Genuinely full of gratitude for you being here this evening, sharing your story. And there definitely will be people that listen to this today that take something from it. And if not, I definitely have as well. So there's at least one person there. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.